So my name is Kendra. I'm over at Atlantic Shore Title in Suite 100 in the building where you guys are located. If I haven't met you yet and you're ever over here, please stop in and introduce yourself. I'm really looking forward to meeting all of you and helping you with whatever I can so that you guys can close lots of transactions this year. That's the goal. The first thing is I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with what title insurance is, so I just printed this out. It kind of explains what it is. We basically insure the past. So we are insuring the buyer for anything that could possibly come back from the past to lien or take ownership of the property. It happens more than you even would know. So title insurance protects your buyer probably on one of the biggest purchases of their life. And it's a one-time fee. You pay it once. And if you purchase a home with a mortgage, then your buyer's actually getting two policies, one for themselves and one for the lender, which the lender 100% will always require insurance. They do not lend money. Normally, I've never seen it without the policy being purchased for them as well. So it's a reduced rate. It used to be $25. Now, some lenders show the fees how they need to for disclosure purposes, but at the end of the day, a second policy on one transaction, whether it's owners or lenders, it's a $25 policy. So it's kind of silly not to purchase one or the other for, like I said, one of the biggest investments of your life. All fees are regulated in the state. New Jersey is, all online. You could go online at any time and put in the purchase price of a property and get a premium. That's not the actual quote for what it's going to cost your buyer, but you could definitely get the premium online whenever you needed it. You could always, I know sometimes things are really tight and you really need an accurate cost of closing costs and things like that to make sure the deal's going to work. You could always call our office and we'd be more than happy to do a quick quote for you. The only thing that's usually not readily available is taxes, if there's liens and things like that. But for the most part, we can get really close. Usually within that same day, I could prepare a pretty decent quote. So if you ever need that, just please let me know. If anybody has any questions, please just let me know. I'm just going to continue to go. And if anything, if you have any questions, just interrupt me. So Schedule A of a title commitment it'll show the amounts for an owner's policy and a lender's policy. So an owner's policy is always the purchase price and a lender's policy is always for the loan amount. And that's what those premiums are calculated on. One of the most important of Schedule A is the chain of title, and that'll show you who currently owns the property and when they purchased it or inherited it or when it foreclosed. So I'm going to just skip through here real quick and go right to this Schedule A. So this is the first page of our title commitment. It'll always show the address up top, our file number, the commitment date. This is the date that we got to in the county. So the county is always behind and they're usually behind by a month. So this commitment date, really, it's just for lenders and title insurance people. It doesn't really affect agents, but this is the date that the county records were available to. The owner's policy is here. So the proposed insured is going to be the name of your buyer or however they're on the contract. The policy amount is your purchase price. And then the lender will always be for the loan policy. That's their information will be here. And a loan amount will go here. So anytime the purchase price or loan amount changes, we have to revise this section. It doesn't take long, but it does affect everything. And then it affects the premium and the fees change on the CD and the HUD. So every time something changes here, it's going to affect the transaction. So here is our chain of title. So this is how our seller on the contract either purchased or inherited the property. So we always look here and make sure that these names match the contract. If they don't, as an agent, you got a problem. Either somebody is deceased, divorced, or someone is selling the property that possibly the deed was never recorded. So one of really important thing to look at when you get a title commitment is this information right here, and just make sure that your contract is valid. And that's something that can be done, can be brought up pretty quickly just by taking a glance at page 1. And the next section is our legal description. So this is what we actually insure. We do not insure addresses. I'm not sure if you guys really see all the revisions that title companies do with lenders, but a lender is the most specific when it comes to the address. They have to go by the United States Postal Service address. So if this address on the contract and the address that is up here, if it's not the USPS address, the lender's going to call us or email us and have us change it. We don't care. We'll change it all day long because we just care about the block and lot. That's what we're insuring. At the end of your transaction, I print this out and I stick it in the deed, and I also stick it in the mortgage, and that's what we're insuring. If your buyer has a survey, the surveyor will do a new legal description that will be similar to this, but things do change depending on their start points and whether or not the grounds have changed a little bit. So this will all change. So if you ever do have a survey, that's something the title company needs in advance so that the paperwork can all be revised and have the correct legal description. The next section is B1. So if you're ever wondering, if you have a buyer and you're ever wondering what your transaction's looking like the day you get the title, and you want to see if you're going to call me and try to schedule a closing in 2 days or not, this is where we want to look first and just make sure that there's nothing showing on here that we didn't know about. So all these items 1 through 10 on B1 are usually standard. They don't change. They're all very simple requirements. We need the deed, we need the mortgage. It's when you get further down that the liens start popping up. So on this in particular one, there's one mortgage. So if there were more than one mortgage, they would be all listed here. You would see 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the seller says, "Oh, well, I only have one mortgage." Okay, well, there's 4 in title, so now we have to get rid of them. And the way you get rid of those is you contact the mortgage company, and we have to usually submit something in writing, and it goes to their research department, and it could take 30 days. And that's never any fun. And then they want proof. And usually the seller doesn't have paperwork from 10, 15 years ago proving how they paid it. So it could be a lengthy process. It could be a time killer. So just be aware, just to always glance at B1 or give us a call if it's our title commitment. And we'd be more than happy to be realistic with you and let you know what we're up against. And we could tell you that over the phone the day the title comes out. We could look at it and say, hey, this is what we need, or this is going to hold us up. All these affidavits. So this is an estate. So of course there's going to be affidavits on the estate. That's something that we deal with. If there were any issues, tax liens, no will, time period wasn't met, because usually with an estate, decedent's debt. So the person who passed, if they have any liens or anything, the creditors have 1 year. At 1 year to file liens on the property. So you'll sometimes see on your title commitment a time frame that we're not going to insure it for because people could technically put liens on it. But this one doesn't look like that, so that was good. Then for this one, the buyer is an LLC, so we are going to always ask for LLC documents. In New Jersey, an LLC should have what's called a certificate of formation. That'll show the state that they actually filed in, and when they're buying, we don't care. If they're a New Jersey or a Delaware company, we don't care. We just need to know what state they were created in with that certificate of formation. On a sale, we care. So on a sale, if they're out of state LLC, there's different requirements that are needed for different states. different tax things that apply. So that's a very important document when you have an LLC as a buyer or seller. You want to make sure to have their certificate of formation and also their operating agreement. An operating agreement will specify what the LLC is allowed to do. And for a sale, again, for a buy, I don't care, but for a sale, you need to make sure that operating agreement shows that they are authorized to sell, lease, purchase real estate. Those are the words we're looking for. And then we also want to see who the members are and who the managing member is. And the managing member should be the one who's signing your contract, or again, we have a problem. LLCs do things all the time where they'll make somebody else the manager or whatever. That's fine. We just need to see whatever amendment they did to their operating agreement. And if it all matches, that's fine. So LLCs are very popular, but they're more, I guess they're more important for a sale where you need most of this documentation. I like to see the documentation when I'm doing a purchase, just because I want to make sure that the deed's prepared correctly. Because if the name of the LLC is incorrect, going into title, you're going to have a nightmare selling it. You're going to have to, get a corrected deed and all that stuff. So I would just suggest as an agent, when you have an LLC, is ask them for their LLC documentation, because the title company will definitely need it. Everything else will go in the affidavit that's on Schedule B. As long as it's not an actual lien that we're paying off, it all goes into the affidavit. Section 2 of a title commitment, Schedule B. So these are all exceptions. This is stuff that we're not going to insure. We are going to remove 1, 2, and 3. These always get removed, but 4 will stay open, which is never an issue with anybody. It's just we leave that open, and then 6 is left open, and this all gets on your marked up title. You're going to see dates here of the days that taxes, water, sewer, MUA, condo dues, HOA fees, whatever we're paying here, I'm going to put dates here so that people can see what they're covered for. Down here, we just have a little note. This really helps people out because the taxes in New Jersey are paid the middle month on the first day. So it kind of confuses people when they see a HUD or an Alta with the prorations. They don't understand, but this kind of helps people see when the dates, when they're due, helps lenders as well. And the other things that'll be on B2 will be easements, restrictions, things that we just can't remove. These are things that are already part of the land. And again, it usually doesn't affect the deal. I printed this one out just as an example. So this is for a condominium. And a lot of times people don't know if they're buying a condo, a townhouse, if it's in an HOA, we don't know. So, this one's pretty easy because we're all familiar with Galloway and Club Place, but if you ever were questioning whether or not something was a condominium, you could look at your legal description and you can look at this. If there's a C after the lot, that's considered a qualifier. And that's how the municipalities determine a condominium unit. So there's the C right there in the legal description. And then you can also look in B2. B2 will show master deed, covenants, restrictions. So I always go to B2 to look for any language, and there it is. You're always going to see master deed, and bingo, that's a condo. So I just wanted to kind of show you guys that. So if you ever had an issue with a mortgage company or a seller, a listing agent telling you, no, it's not a condo. Well, if the title says it's a condo, we have a problem. Now we have to see, was an amendment done to make it no longer a condo? And I have seen that done a couple times, but again, I'm not sure if you guys have that issue, but something I just wanted to bring up because I've seen it happen a couple times. Another thing to look out for are list pendants. So a list pendants puts everyone on notice that you're in default on your mortgage and there's going to be a foreclosure. So if you ever see, it would be in B1. B1 of a title commitment would show list pendants. This is what it looks like in the county, and it's basically, again, foreclosure. So for a listing agent or a buyer, this is, you know, good to familiarize yourself with a list pendants, because you might not be aware that it's an actual foreclosure, or you could be negotiating a short sale and see there's a list pendants on title, and then you know that you're up against the clock for that as well, or you need to get it pushed back, or whatever you're going to need to do to get it closed. So that's what a list pendants looks like. They sometimes are not, after it forecloses and everything, they're still showing on title. So if we ever see a list pendants and Fannie Mae owns it, and we kind of know that it was, the foreclosure went through, but we still have to get that stuff released. You don't want, you know, your buyer leaving the closing and then still having that stuff on the property. If they go to refinance or sell it and it's still there, it's not a good thing to do, and it's going to cause them some trouble. So we try to do the right thing all the time and get this stuff all cleared up when we're closing a transaction. The other things that'll pop up on B1 that are good to know is a federal tax lien. Now, what's great about this tax lien in Atlantic County, you can see the Social Security numbers right here. So this is how we clear it. I had one a couple weeks ago that was Camden, and Camden was blocking everything out and I couldn't clear it. So just familiarize yourself with that. So if you're a listing agent and a title company calls and says your guy has a tax lien, I would maybe ask for a copy of the search, or you could always give me a call and I could find out. But the search will reveal the social, and you could get that cleared up pretty quickly, or you could confirm that your seller or buyer, you know, actually has a tax lien, and that's something that's going to have to be dealt with. The next one is tax search. So I just wanted to kind of show some examples on what's good to look at. So this will be right after the commitment in our packet. You'll see a tax search. The tax search will show the address. It'll show the block and lot. I've kind of wiped everything out because this is an example, but this one I brought to your attention because this will actually show you if there's municipal or well and septic. So this one is septic, and there's a private water, which we know is a well. Usually when there's septic, there's well. They run hand in hand. So in New Jersey, properties that are being sold have to have well tests. So this would be your heads up that the title company is going to be asking for a well test, or maybe it's your listing. You're going to have to get that moving for the other title company so that they can have clear title at closing. There is an affidavit that does allow us to close a transaction without a well test, but I just don't know people if it's their drinking water, I would think they'd want to get that tested. This is another example, and this one is basically on a non-exempt owner. So you're a listing agent, this is fine. But if you're a buyer's agent, all these taxes are exempt. So what's going to happen is somebody is going to be estimating taxes. And usually when taxes are estimated, they are like estimated beyond like $2,000-$3,000, where I've seen it kill deals in the mortgage world. When I did mortgages, people would be coming up with these crazy amounts for taxes, and it would kill the DTI and the payment. So we have to be mindful of that. New construction, new construction is the same thing, where, somebody's usually they take the appraised value and they times it by the current tax rate. And like I said, they're usually a lot more than what they're going to be assessed at, but that's the only way to do it. That's the only way to calculate it. And at the end of the day, it's up to the mortgage company to do it and approve it. They're underwriters. We as a title company, all we can do is put a letter on letterhead and say, this is the estimated tax amount. But again, it's going to be a lot higher than you and your buyer were probably expecting. So if you ever see this, you could always call me and I could get you that estimate, just so you can kind of have a heads up to see if your deal's going to work, or what plan B is, or what the mortgage company will allow you to do. This next one is just a standard tax cert. So there's no liens. It gives us all the amounts. So this one is ideal. This is what you kind of want to see. You want to see no liens. You want to see an assessed value. If there's any added assessments, they'll also be listed on this tax cert. And I want you to look out for that. And I couldn't find an example. I was trying to find one, but it'll literally say added assessment right here, and it'll show you additional amounts. And then again, that's the new taxes. So they have to be collected and they have to be considered for that monthly payment. So if you ever see that and have questions, you could always call me. This will also show liens on these tax searches. So here's another one with a lien, and there it is. So it'll show you tax liens. It'll give you the cert number, how much it is, but that's not the payoff, but that's like an estimated amount of it's going to be that plus. I would always add like a couple $100 to kind of have a realistic idea of what you're looking at. So I think one of the biggest things in title, besides old mortgages and foreclosures and estates, are judgments. So we send out a form when you guys order title from us. We send a form to the seller and the buyer, ask them for their social, their date of birth, and their driver's license number. Previous addresses for 20 years to clear all judgments are super helpful. And I just want to kind of show you why, just so you have an understanding of why we're always calling you and asking you for this stuff, because it's really the only thing it's the only way we can do our job, period. Like we just need it, or we're going to be waiting for faxes, and it's a nightmare. But, so like this guy has a very common name. His name is Jeffrey Roberts. And as you can see, there are no addresses. There is no social security number. There is a date of birth, but I don't even know what that is. 2171. I have no idea what his date of birth is. So we would need to call this attorney. We have to call the attorney or Monmouth County Probation Department, and we have to fax them a letter from Jeffrey Roberts with his social, his date of birth, and ask them to please verify that these are against him and send us a payoff, or to send us a letter saying it's not a match. So for every single one that doesn't have a social or date of birth, we have to do that. And now we are just waiting on these offices and these people, and it could be a while. It could be a couple weeks. I was involved in obtaining a judgment payoff, and it literally took 60 days. So I understand that, we want to do things quick, but sometimes it's out of our hands. So here we have actually date of birth on this judgment. So if this guy wasn't born 9/1968, we're going to draw a line through it, and we're going to keep going, and we just cleared it. So this one we can clear with a driver's license. So the more information we have, the quicker we can go. And that's really one of the most biggest things for me and my office is just, as long as we have the information, we can pretty much clear this stuff pretty quickly, unless you're at page 1 where there was no information and we actually had a fax. This one, as long as he didn't live in Pensgrove, we could clear it. So that's why we ask for all that information up front. And usually, I would say 85% of the files in my office have judgments. It's just part of it. That's always one of the biggest roadblocks for us. So I printed out some common exceptions that you would see on title, mostly utilities. So this one's from Atlantic City Electric Company. And this is just an easement for them to use the land as they need to. And again, this could be wires hanging above the house, whatever it is, but they have the right to run their equipment on your property. And it's pretty much almost on every single property. You will see some type of easement with either the electric company, the sewage company, whoever. They actually will attach a map to it usually, or something that the client can look at to locate where exactly it is on their property. I always refer them to an attorney. I don't try to look at any of that or talk about it with a client just because I'm not versed in it. And I mean, the lands could have changed, things could have changed. So I just give them the copy and tell them to call their attorney if they ever have questions about easements. Another thing that's common in our area are the tidelands. A tideland claim is usually on every single property that touches the water. So anybody with a bulkhead or a dock, usually there's some kind of tidelands thing going on. And if it has not been claimed yet, so like this one is unclaimed, which is good. If it's going to be anything, it's going to be unclaimed, and that's not a bad thing. And also you could see where this lot is not even near a body of water. It could have a stream or something going through it. I have seen that, but for the most part, it's stuff, it'll be apparent, and the listing agent usually discloses that in in the MLS or the contract, whether or not there's a grant. So if it is claimed, if you get one of these searches and it doesn't say unclaimed and it says claimed, it'll say it right here, claimed. It'll show a map just like this, and there'll be actual water. The waterway will be through it, or the bay will be here, the ocean, and then it's going to have a percentage. So the state will claim that as theirs, and that's why you need the grant. And here's the grant that would be filed in the county if this was, if there actually was a grant, it'll be in the county, and it'll have all the terms of the grant of when they gave it and what they allowed. So if you see one that says claimed and there is no grant, then I would definitely get an attorney to get involved, because there's a whole bunch of paperwork and stuff that has to be done. And there's a lot of money that has to usually be paid up front to get the actual grant. So keep that in mind. But I would say most of the county right now is claimed and caught up, because they've been doing that for a while. And then
I'm saying distance better.
Hi. Can you repeat that? Okay. So this next document, this is the ALTA, and the ALTA has now replaced the HUD. So you will see an ALTA in every transaction that has a lender. If it's a cash deal, we're still using HUDs, but anything that is a lender, the ALTA is what I prepare and then send to the agents to confirm that I have everything on there that I should, or remove things or add things. So if you ever see an email, from me that says ALTA, please review, I just ask that you take a quick look at it and make sure that if you have a processing fee or reimbursement, that you see it on here. And the ALTA is pretty easy to read. The seller will always be on the left side, and the buyer or borrower's debits and credits will always be on the right. And the description will always be in the middle. So if a seller has prepaid taxes and sewer, this one did, they're getting credited for taxes and sewer up here, and the buyer is reimbursing them. So this is a debit. So your credits and debits should always be up here on the ALTA on the first page. And then everything else is pretty much a debit all the way down to the buyer, and then debits to the seller, commissions. This one has transfer tax, so the seller always pays the transfer tax unless they're exempt. Then the reimbursements here are debits, and these are debits here for recording. And then the bottom line is always the last page. This one didn't have too many things, so there's only 2 pages. But down here, due from borrower, this is always going to be what's needed, certified amount once it's finalized. And the seller, what are they getting? Due to seller is this amount down here. In a cash transaction, we are going to be using HUDs. They also use HUDs for like hard money loans. A lot of hard money lenders will allow a HUD, and the HUD is just the old school way. It's the easiest way. It's what I'm used to. I'm still getting used to the other stuff, but a HUD is pretty much the same thing, except on this one, you have buyer and seller, buyers on the left, sellers on the right. And these are debits to the buyer, and these are credits to the seller. And this is credits to the buyer and seller debits down here. And the same thing, cash from borrower. This is what your borrower is going to need to bring in certified funds. And this is what the seller's netting from the transaction. And then page 2 is always just debits, always debits all the way down on the HUD. On the second page, and then signature for the third page. If you ever have a cash transaction, your buyer does not need to come to closing, only if they want to. We could always send wire instructions and they could sign the HUD via email. They could, you guys can throw a DocuSign on it if you want. I don't have DocuSign, but I could send it to you. You could get a DocuSign and get the money wired. So just keep that in mind for a quick cash closing. We don't need a buyer. I would just ask that he took a picture of his ID and emailed it to me with a copy of the signed HUD, and we could close the transaction out as long as the seller docs were here. When there's a lender involved, there's just so many other things that need to be done, timeframes that have to be met. So a lender deal is pretty much, you know, they can go pretty quickly, but there's just a lot of other steps and a lot of other underwriting procedures that go on with the buyer that are out of our hands. But most importantly, as long as we get a title order and all the information from you guys up front, we could pretty much close a deal. I'm confident pretty quickly. As long as the search comes back, we can get it closed within a week or two. I think we've been trying to do that for you guys, and you know, hopefully this gave you guys some insight on what it does take to kind of clear a file and, you know, front to back, what goes on. Does anybody have any questions? No? We're good?
Yeah.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning into the class. And again, just give us a call if you ever need anything. Myself, Mary is the processor. Carolyn is at the front desk taking all the orders and trying to get all that information up front for us. So we just appreciate your teamwork and would love to help you if you have any questions. Thank you.